The call came during my lunch break, right as I was reviewing the projections for my biggest client's portfolio. Mom's number flashing on my screen never meant good news. It meant Gunnar needed something. Again. I'm Phoebe, and I've spent 34 years being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who's supposed to drop everything when golden boy baby brother screws up, which, as my ringing phone suggested, was exactly what was happening. Phoebe, honey, we need you to come over tonight. It's an emergency. Mom's voice had that familiar tremor, the one that meant she was about to ask for money. What did he do this time? Don't be like that. Your brother, he's in a difficult situation. We're having dinner at 6. You need to be here. I glanced at my calendar, at the fertility clinic consultation I'd scheduled for that evening. The appointment I'd waited 3 months for. Mom, I have plans. Cancel them. This is family. Click. The fertility clinic was understanding about the last-minute cancellation. They only charged me half the consultation fee. Another $250 down the drain because of Gunnar. I added it to my mental tally. Walking into my parents' house that evening felt like stepping into a funeral. Mum's eyes were red-rimmed. Dad sat in his recliner, staring at nothing. And there was Gunnar, slumped at the dining room table, looking appropriately devastated. Hey, sis, his voice cracked, always the performer. What's the damage? I asked, setting my purse down. Mum burst into tears. He owes $60,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. To who? Some guys, Gunnar mumbled, from poker nights, online stuff too. They're not exactly legitimate businessmen. You mean loan sharks? I sat down heavily. Jesus Christ, Gunnar. Language, Mom snapped, then immediately softened her tone. Honey, we know it's a lot to ask, but you're the only one who can help. You're so successful with your financial work, and your brother. He's trying so hard to find his path. I looked at Gunnar, still in his designer clothes, his expensive watch glinting. That watch could cover at least $5,000. It was a gift from Riley, he protested. Your savings, Dad finally spoke. You've always been good with money. Family helps family. My savings are for IVF, I said quietly. I've been planning this for years. Mom waved her hand dismissively. You can always save up again. Your brother's life could be in danger. Gunnar lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, Phoebe. I messed up. I know I messed up. But these guys, they're serious. They showed up at my work yesterday. I watched him cry, remembering all the times before. The college tuition I'd helped with, the down payment for his first apartment, the temporary loans that were never repaid. Each time he'd cried just like this. Each time I'd given in. Okay, I said finally. I'll help. The relief in the room was palpable. Mom rushed to hug me. Dad smiled, and Gunnar wiped his eyes. But, I continued, this time we're doing it my way. What do you mean? Mom's arms loosened around me. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Hey, Kendra, remember that contract we discussed? Draw it up. I'll be there first thing tomorrow. Contract? Gunnar's voice had lost its tremor. What contract? I stood up, gathering my things. If I'm giving you $60,000, we're making it official, legal, binding. That's ridiculous, Mom protested. We're family. Exactly, and family should have no problem putting things in writing. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Gunnar, make sure that Mustang of yours is running well. You'll need it. My car? What does my car have to do with anything? I smiled, and for the first time in years, I felt something other than resignation. You'll find out tomorrow. After all, every loan needs collateral. The look of uncertainty that flashed across his face was worth every penny I was about to lend him. As I walked to my car, I could hear Mom's voice rising in protest. But for once, I didn't turn back. I had a lawyer to meet and a contract to draft. Family helps family, they always said. But this time, help would come with terms and conditions. "This is insane," Gunnar said, staring at the contract spread across Kendra's polished conference table. "You can't be serious." "Every word is serious," I replied, sliding him a pen. $60,000, 3 months to repay, the Mustang as collateral. "It's just a car," Mom interjected from her seat beside him. She hadn't been invited, but showed up anyway. "Phoebe, you're being dramatic." Kendra, my best friend and now lawyer, cleared her throat. "Mrs. Hanson, this is a standard loan agreement. Given the amount involved, collateral is more than reasonable." "But we're family!" Mom's voice rose an octave, which is exactly why everything should be clear and documented. I kept my voice level. "Sign it, Gunnar, or find the money somewhere else." He laughed, but it was hollow. "Where else am I supposed to get it? You know these guys won't wait." "Then sign." His hand shook slightly as he picked up the pen. I watched him skim the document, his eyes widening at certain parts. 3 months isn't very long. Neither is my patience, I said. You make 6 figures at your job. 3 months is generous. But with my other expenses, like your Vegas trips, I cut in, your new gaming setup, that collection of limited edition sneakers. Mom stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "You're being cruel, Phoebe. Your brother is in trouble, and you're treating him like a criminal." "No," Kendra interrupted. "She's treating him like an adult borrower, which is exactly what he is." I closed my eyes briefly, remembering the day 5 years ago when Gunnar had called about his first apartment. I'd been about to put a down payment on my own place, but his voice had been desperate. "Just until I get my bonus," he'd promised. That money never came back to me. 2 years later, it was his student loans threatening to default, another chunk of my savings gone. Then his emergency appendectomy bills, because he'd let his insurance lapse. Each time, I'd given without conditions. Each time, I'd pushed my own dreams further away. "Sign it," I said again, opening my eyes. "Or walk away." Gunnar looked at Mom, then back at me. Slowly, he began signing each page. When he reached the final signature line, he paused. "You wouldn't really take my car." "Try me." He signed. Kendra notarized the document efficiently, making copies for everyone. "Congratulations," she said dryly. "You now have a legally binding loan agreement." "I can't believe you're doing this to your own brother," Mom said, gathering her designer purse. "What happened to you, Phoebe? You used to be such a sweet girl." "I grew up," I replied. "Maybe it's time Gunnar did too." After they left, Kendra poured us each a glass of wine. "You okay?" "They think I'm bluffing," I said, taking a long sip. "They all think this is just me being dramatic." "Their mistake." Kendra raised her glass. "To consequences." Later that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Mum. "Your father and I are very disappointed in your behavior today. This legal nonsense is embarrassing the whole family. What will people think?" I typed back. "They'll think Gunnar finally has to face responsibility for his actions." The response came quickly. "You're being vindictive. He's your brother. He needs support, not judgment." I set my phone down without responding and walked to my home office. Opening my filing cabinet, I pulled out a folder labeled Future. Inside were brochures from fertility clinics, information about IVF procedures, and a carefully crafted financial plan. Years of work and saving, all potentially derailed because my brother couldn't stay away from poker tables. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Gunnar. "Hey sis, about that 3-month deadline. Any chance we could make it 6? Just to be safe?" I replied with a single word. "No." Then I blocked both his and Mom's numbers for the night. I needed sleep, and tomorrow I had an early meeting with a new client. Unlike some people, I had a reputation for reliability to maintain. As I got ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Mum was right about one thing. I had changed. The sweet, accommodating girl who would do anything for family peace was gone. In her place stood someone who finally understood that real love didn't require constant sacrifice. The contract wasn't just about money. It was about breaking a pattern that had defined my entire adult life. For once, Gunnar would face real consequences for his actions. And if that made me the bad guy in their eyes, so be it. I slept better that night than I had in years. Sunday family dinner was a tradition I usually dreaded. But today, I was actually looking forward to it. 2 weeks had passed since the contract signing, and I was curious to see how Gunnar was handling his financial restructuring. I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. "Check this out," Gunnar was saying as I walked in, waving his phone at our parents. "Top-of-the-line gaming PC, curved monitor, the works. Got an amazing deal." Mom beamed. "That's wonderful, honey. You deserve something nice after all that stress." I set my contribution to dinner, a store-bought pie, on the counter with deliberate care. Interesting purchase choice, given your current situation. "Oh, don't start," Mom said, stirring something on the stove. "He got a great price." "Any price is too high when you owe $60,000. I poured myself a generous glass of wine, plus interest. Gunnar's girlfriend Riley appeared from the living room, her face tight with worry. She pulled him aside, whispering urgently. I caught fragments. Sean called again, and, getting impatient. My phone buzzed. Kendra's text read, "Heads up. Someone tried to file a backdated payment confirmation for your brother's loan. Amateur hour forgery. Want me to look into it?" "Please do," I typed back. Dad wandered in, newspaper in hand. "Everything okay? You look tense, Phoebe." "Just wondering about priorities," I said loudly enough for Gunnar to hear. "Like buying gaming equipment instead of paying debts." "I've got it handled," Gunnar snapped. "Stop monitoring my spending like some psycho hall monitor." Riley touched his arm. "Maybe we should go." "No," Mom interrupted. "Everyone sit down. I made pot roast, Gunnar's favorite. Let's have a nice family dinner." We sat. We ate. The tension was thick enough to cut with the fancy serving knife Mom only used for Sunday dinners. Every time Gunnar opened his mouth, it was to brag about something new he'd bought or was planning to buy. Each time, Mom and Dad nodded approvingly while I took another sip of wine. My phone rang. Unknown number. I stepped outside to answer it. "This Phoebe?" A man's voice, rough and unfamiliar. "Who's asking?" "Friend of your brother's. Name's Sean. Heard you're helping him with some financial issues." My hand tightened on the phone. "That's between me and my brother." "See, that's where you're wrong. Your brother made promises to me first. That car of his? Already promised as collateral. Months ago. Not legally." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I care about legal? Tell your brother he's got 2 weeks. And tell him that fancy car better stay exactly where it is." The line went dead. I stood there, processing. So Gunnar had tried to use the Mustang as collateral twice. Typical. Back inside, Riley was leaving in a hurry, mascara smudged. Gunnar watched her go with an expression I couldn't read. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Mind your own business," he muttered. After dinner, I drove past Gunnar's apartment complex. The Mustang wasn't in its usual spot. I circled the block twice before finding it, hidden behind the building near the dumpsters. My phone buzzed again. "Kendra. Found out who tried to forge the payment docs. IP address traces back to your brother's home network. Want to press charges?" "Not yet," I replied. Let's wait. Another text came through, this one from Riley. We need to talk, not at your parents' house. It's important. I thought about Sean's call, about the hidden Mustang, about Riley's tearful exit. All the pieces were there, forming a picture of desperation. Gunnar was scrambling, and scrambling people make mistakes. I drove home, making a mental note to call Desmond, the repo man Kendra had recommended, just to put him on standby. 2 more months remained on the loan term, but something told me we wouldn't make it that long. That night, I dreamed of the day Gunnar got the Mustang. Dad had helped him restore it, spending countless weekends working on it together. I'd asked once if Dad would help me learn about cars too. This is more of a father-son thing, he'd said, not even looking up from the engine. I woke up to another text from Riley. Please, it's getting dangerous. Tomorrow, I wrote back. Coffee shop on 5th, 8 a.m. Whatever she had to say, I had a feeling it would justify every precaution I'd taken with that contract. Gunnar wasn't just playing games anymore. He was playing with fire. And this time, I wouldn't be the one getting burned. The deadline arrived with the same silent treatment I'd been getting for weeks. No payment, no explanation, not even a request for extension. Just radio silence from Gunnar. I gave him a week of grace, sending 1 text each day. Payment due. Need to discuss options. Call me. Last chance before consequences. Gunnar? Really doing this? Your choice? Nothing. On day 8, I called Desmond. His voice was gruff but professional. Got the paperwork ready? All legal and notarized, I said, fingers tracing the contract on my desk. He's had multiple warnings. Sunday dinner, you said? Yes, 6 p.m. sharp. Mom's very particular about timing. I'll be there at 6:15. Give everyone time to settle in. I hung up and opened my email to find a message from Kendra with urgent in the subject line. Attached were scanned documents, crude attempts at forged payment receipts, all traced back to Gunnar's IP address. 3 different versions, each more desperate than the last. Want to add fraud charges? Kendra asked in her message. Hold that card, I replied. Let's see how Sunday plays out. My phone lit up with Mom's number. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Phoebe, darling. Her voice dripped honey. About Sunday dinner. I'll be there. Oh, good. It's just, Gunnar mentioned you two had some sort of disagreement about money. I laughed. Did he tell you the deadline passed? That he hasn't paid a cent? Well, times are tight for everyone. Your father and I thought maybe we could discuss a more reasonable arrangement, as a family. The arrangement was reasonable. The contract was clear. Sunday will be interesting. What does that mean? Her voice sharpened. It means I'm bringing dessert. Apple pie, okay? I hung up before she could respond and called Riley. She answered on the first ring. Is it happening? She asked. Sunday. You should stay away. Trust me, I will. He's been different. Scary different. I thought about our coffee shop meeting, how Riley's hands shook as she described Gunnar's late-night calls to shady contacts, his explosive anger, the mounting pressure from Sean and his crew. He tried to forge payment documents, I told her. Jesus, add it to the list. Yesterday he tried to sell the Mustang to some guy on Facebook. Good thing you filed that lien. A text came through from Desmond. Need the car's exact location. I forwarded him the tracking device data I'd had installed during the Grace Week. The Mustang was at a strip mall across town. Another hiding attempt. Won't matter, Desmond texted back. Got the warrant, GPS coordinates. Sunday's gonna be fun. The rest of the week crawled by. I kept my routines, client meetings, gym sessions, evening calls with Kendra to review the legal framework one last time. Everything had to be perfect. Saturday night, Mum tried again. Please, honey, Can't we discuss this privately? Before tomorrow? Nothing to discuss. Contract was clear. He's your brother. Exactly. And brothers should keep their word. Sunday morning, I woke up early and drove past Gunner's apartment. The Mustang was back in its usual spot, probably part of some plan to make everything look normal for dinner. I spent the afternoon preparing myself, choosing a simple black dress and comfortable shoes. This would be a performance after all. Might as well dress the part. At 5:55 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway. Mum's pot roast smell wafted from the kitchen. Dad's football game blared from the living room. Gunner's Mustang gleamed in the evening light, freshly washed. I checked my phone one last time. Desmond, 20 minutes out. Kendra, documents ready? Police on standby if needed. Riley, good luck. Stay safe. Inside, Gunner was holding court, telling some story about a work presentation. He faltered slightly when he saw me, but recovered quickly. Hey sis, want to hear about this deal I just landed? I set my purse down and smiled. Sure, tell me everything about your financial successes. Mom shot me a warning look. Dad suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. Actually, Gunner said, his voice tight, maybe we should talk about our little arrangement. I checked my watch. 6:12 p.m. Let's talk, I said, sitting down. You have about 3 minutes to make this very interesting. The sound of a heavy diesel engine rumbled in the distance. Right on schedule. The diesel engine grew louder. Gunner's face went from confident to concerned in the space of a heartbeat. What's that sound? He asked. I took a slow sip of wine. Karma, arriving right on schedule. Mom stood up to peer out the window. Her gasp could have shattered crystal. There's a tow truck pulling up. Phoebe, what have you done? Nothing yet. I set my glass down carefully. Gunner did this to himself. The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. I'll get it, I said, standing up. Since this is my show. Desmond filled the doorframe, clipboard in hand. Professional. Efficient. Behind him, neighbors were already gathering on their porches to watch the drama unfold. Evening, ma'am. Here for the vehicle repossession. You can't do this! Gunner shot up from his chair, face red. That's my car! Actually, I said, taking the clipboard from Desmond, it's collateral for an unpaid debt, as clearly stated in the contract you signed. Dad finally spoke up. Phoebe, please, we can work something out. The time for working things out was 3 months ago, or last week, or yesterday. I turned to Desmond. The car's right there. Keys should be on the hook by the door. Gunner lunged for the key hook, but I was faster. Years of being the responsible one had taught me to anticipate his moves. Give them to me, he shouted. Or what? I met his eyes. You'll forge more documents? Try to sell a car that legally can't be sold? Call Sean again? Mom gasped. Who's Sean? Just one of the many people Gunner tried to scam. I handed the keys to Desmond, along with his own sister. You vindictive bitch, Gunner spat. You've been planning this all along. No, I said calmly. I gave you every chance. 3 months of chances. 7 extra days of chances. All you had to do was pay back the money you borrowed. Instead, you bought gaming equipment, went to Vegas, tried to hide the car, tried to forge payments. I'm calling the police, Mom announced, reaching for her phone. Go ahead, I said. The repo order is legal. The contract is legal. Everything is documented, witnessed, and notarized. Or would you rather explain to them about Gunner's gambling debts, his fraud attempts, his deals with Sean? The room went silent except for the sound of Desmond hooking up the Mustang outside. You don't understand what you're doing, Mom tried again, tears streaming. This car, it's special. Your father and brother restored it together. I remember. I turned to Dad. Just like I remember asking to help, being told it was a father-son thing. Well, guess what? Now it's a legal thing. You're destroying this family, Mom sobbed. Something inside me snapped. I'm destroying the family. Me? Where was this concern for family when you drained my college fund for Gunner's gambling debts? When you guilted me into giving up my house down payment for his temporary emergency? When you dismissed my IVF plans because precious Gunner needed another bailout? That was different, Mom protested weakly. You're right. It was different. Because back then, I was stupid enough to believe family meant something. That sacrifice went both ways. That someday, someone would put me first. The sound of chains clinking outside punctuated my words. But you know what I learned? Family isn't about enabling destruction. It's not about one person always giving while others take. And it's definitely not about protecting someone from the consequences of their own choices. Gunner charged toward the door. I stepped aside, letting him run out to where Desmond was finishing up with the Mustang. You can't take my car! I'll sue! With what lawyer? I asked, following him out. With what money? The neighbors weren't even pretending not to watch anymore. Some had their phones out, recording. Vehicles secured, Desmond announced. Sign here to confirm the repossession. I signed with a steady hand while Gunner screamed obscenities and Mom cried on the front porch. Dad just stood there, silent as always. The Mustang looked beautiful in the evening light as it was towed away. Years of memories, of unequal treatment, of forced sacrifices, rolling down the street on the back of a flatbed. This isn't over, Gunner threatened, his voice low and dangerous. You're right, I agreed, gathering my purse. It's just the beginning. Ask Sean about the documentation I have on your other deals. Ask Riley about the recordings she kept. Ask yourself why you thought you'd never face consequences. I walked to my car, head high, leaving chaos in my wake. Behind me, I heard Mom wail about her ruined Sunday dinner. For once, I didn't feel guilty at all. The emails started flooding in the next morning. Mom had been busy, crafting a detailed narrative about my mental breakdown and sending it to every relative we had. Aunt Susan called to tell me I needed Jesus. Cousin Rachel suggested therapy. Uncle Mike just sent a disappointed face emoji. I forwarded each message to a special folder labeled Flying Monkeys and went about my day. You holding up okay? Kendra asked over lunch. Better than expected. I picked at my salad. Though Mom's smear campaign is impressive. Apparently, I'm now a money-obsessed sociopath who's jealous of her brother's success. Success at what? Professional gambling? My phone buzzed. Riley's name flashed on the screen. Hey, I answered. Everything okay? No. Her voice was shaky. Gunner's been drinking since yesterday. He told Sean you stole the car. Said you forced him to sign papers. Sean's really angry. Let him be angry. Everything was legal. Legal doesn't matter to guys like Sean. Riley's voice cracked. Look, I'm leaving town for a while. You should be careful too. After she hung up, Kendra leaned forward. Want me to file for a restraining order? Not yet. Let's see. A shadow fell across our table. I looked up to find a man in an expensive suit standing there, his smile sharp as a razor. Mind if I join you, ladies? Without waiting for an answer, he sat down. Everything about him radiated controlled menace. Sean, I presume? I kept my voice steady. Smart girl. He adjusted his cufflinks. Your brother's been telling interesting stories about you. I'm sure he has. I met his gaze. But we both know Gunner's stories aren't always truthful. True. Sean's smile didn't waver. Like when he promised me that pretty Mustang as collateral. Imagine my surprise when I learned someone else had a legal claim to it. Kendra started to speak, but I touched her arm. I have all the documentation. The lien. The contract. The attempted fraud evidence. Would you like to see? Already did my homework. He leaned back. You're thorough. I respect that. But this puts me in an awkward position. Your brother still owes me money. That's between you and him. Is it? His voice hardened. Because taking my collateral makes it feel like my business is your business now. I pulled out my phone, opened a file, and slid it across the table. These are screenshots of every conversation Gunnar had about your operation. Dates, names, dollar amounts. Riley was very helpful. The smile vanished from Sean's face. I'm not threatening you, I continued. I'm explaining why it's in everyone's best interest to keep this professional. You lost the Mustang because Gunnar lied. Take it up with him. Sean studied me for a long moment, then stood up. Interesting family dynamic you've got. Tell Riley I said hi when she comes out of hiding. After he left, Kendra let out a breath. Okay, we're definitely filing that restraining order now. Back at my apartment, I found 3 voicemails from Mum, each more hysterical than the last. The final one caught my attention. Your father's not eating. He's so upset about the car. All those memories just gone. I hope you're happy with yourself. I deleted them all and poured a glass of wine. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across my living room. In the quiet, I could finally process the weight of what I'd done. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The car was just the beginning. Sleep tight, sis. I forwarded it to Kendra, then called the police to file a report. The officer sounded bored as he took down the details. Family disputes are complicated, he said, but keep documenting everything. Later that night, my doorbell rang. I checked the camera. It was Dad, alone. Can I come in? He asked when I opened the door. I stepped aside. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. Your mother doesn't know I'm here, he said, sitting heavily on my couch. She's not handling this well. And how are you handling it? He stared at his hands. I kept all the receipts, from the car restoration, every part we bought, every tool. Gunnar, he didn't pay for any of it. I did, even when he promised to split the costs. Why are you telling me this? Because you were right, about everything. And I'm sorry I never said anything before. I didn't respond. Years of silence couldn't be fixed with one late-night confession. Be careful, he said, standing to leave. Your brother, he's not the person we pretended he was. After he left, I double-checked my locks and security system. Tomorrow, I'd call about upgrading everything. Tonight, I just needed to breathe. The war wasn't over. But at least now everyone knew which side they were on. The pounding on my door started at 2 a.m., 3 weeks after the Mustang incident. I didn't need to check the camera to know who it was. Open up, Phoebe. Gunnar's voice was slurred, desperate. We need to talk. I pressed the intercom button. Leave, or I'm calling the police. Call them! I don't care anymore! Something crashed against my door. You ruined everything. My car, my job, my life. I already had 911 dialed, finger hovering over the call button. Riley left me. Did you know that? She's not answering my calls. Sean's guys are following me. I had to quit my job because everyone saw the video of the repo. It's all over social media. Your choices led to this, I said firmly. Not me. Choices? He laughed, bitter and broken. Like you chose to be such a perfect daughter? Always saving, always planning, always judging me. Another crash. I hit the call button. You think you're better than me? At least I know how to live? What do you have? An empty apartment and a bunch of money you're wasting on trying to have a baby by yourself? My hand tightened on the intercom. The police are on their way. Good, let them come. I'll tell them how you set me up, how you forced me to sign that contract, how you... He cut off suddenly. Through the door camera, I watched him stumble backward, hands raised. 2 police officers approached, flashlights drawn. Sir, step away from the door. That's my sister in there! Gunnar's voice cracked. She stole my car. She ruined my life. Sir, we have a restraining order on file. You need to come with us. I watched through the peephole as they cuffed him, as he alternated between crying and threatening me. Only when their car pulled away did I sink to the floor, shaking. My phone lit up with texts. Mom, Gunnar just got arrested. How could you? Dad, are you safe? Kendra, police called. I'm coming over. Riley, is he gone? I answered only Kendra and Riley. Some bridges needed to stay burned. Morning brought a different kind of surprise. An envelope taped to my door, my name written in Riley's familiar scrawl. Inside was an ultrasound photo and a note. I'm 8 weeks along. Hadn't told him yet. Now I never will. Thought you should know you're going to be an aunt. I'm moving back home to Portland. Don't tell him where I've gone. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the grainy image while waiting for Kendra to arrive. My brother's child? My niece or nephew? Another piece of collateral damage in this mess. We need to talk about pressing charges, Kendra said when she arrived, eyeing the new dents in my door. Last night crossed a line. He's facing other charges anyway. Drunk and disorderly. Violating the restraining order. That's not enough. She pulled out her laptop. Look at this. She showed me security footage from my building's garage. Gunnar, clearly intoxicated, slashing my car tires 2 hours before his dramatic doorstep performance. He's escalating, she said quietly. This isn't just about the Mustang anymore. Was it ever? I picked up the ultrasound photo. Riley's pregnant. Kendra's eyes widened. Does he know? No, she's leaving town. I handed her the note. She's scared of him. Everyone is. Including you. I thought about it. No, I'm not scared. I'm just tired. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of me through my apartment window, clearly taken from the building across the street. Below it, a message. Sean says hello. Kendra read it over my shoulder and immediately started typing on her laptop. That's it. We're getting you out of here. My firm has a corporate apartment downtown. Doorman, security, the works. I can't hide forever. No, but you can be smart. Let the police handle Gunnar. Let me handle the legal side. You focus on staying safe and... She gestured at the fertility clinic brochures still on my counter. Living your life. I packed a bag while Kendra made calls. As we left, another text came through, this time from Dad. Found Gunnar's journals in the garage. Things he wrote. Plans he made. You're right to be careful. I should have seen it sooner. I'm sorry. In the elevator, Kendra squeezed my hand. You know what the hardest part of revenge is? What? Knowing when to stop, when to let karma take over. I looked at the ultrasound photo one more time before tucking it away. Karma had already started its work. Now I just had to survive the fallout. The fertility clinic waiting room was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. I scrolled through my emails, pausing at one from Riley with a new ultrasound photo attached. She was having a girl. Ms. Phoebe, the nurse called. Dr. Andrews is ready for you. As I stood, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I nearly dropped it when I saw the headline. Local man arrested in multi-state gambling ring. Below was Gunnar's mugshot, alongside Sean's. Everything okay? The nurse asked. Better than okay, I replied, following her to the consultation room. Dr. Andrews greeted me with a warm smile. I've reviewed your financial documentation. The IVF funding is all in order. We can start the process whenever you're ready. The Mustang sold quickly, I said. Classic cars have quite a market. Speaking of which, she slid a newspaper across her desk. Isn't this your brother? I skimmed the article. The FBI had been watching Sean's operation for months. Gunnar's desperate attempts to save himself had apparently involved wearing a wire, trying to cut a deal, but he'd played both sides too long. And now, everyone was going down. My phone lit up with a text from Kendra. "Turn on the news. Now." "Excuse me," I said to Dr. Andrews. "Could we?" She turned on the small TV in her office. The local news showed police leading people out of an office building. The reporter's voice was clear and professional. Among those arrested was Margaret Hanson, charged with helping launder money through her charity organization. Her husband, Frank Hanson, is cooperating with authorities. I switched off the TV. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "Should we reschedule?" Dr. Andrews asked gently. "No." I sat straighter. "My family's drama doesn't control my life anymore. Let's talk about next steps." Later, leaving the clinic with my treatment schedule in hand, I found Dad waiting by my car. "How did you know I'd be here?" "Kendra told me." He looked exhausted. "I'm testifying against your mother and brother tomorrow. The FBI found evidence going back years. The charity, the gambling. It was all connected." "Did you know?" "Not everything. Enough to feel guilty. Not enough to stop it." He pulled a leather-bound journal from his jacket. "I want you to have this. I've been writing in it since you kids were young." I opened it randomly. Phoebe got straight A's again. Gunnar failed math. Margaret says I'm too hard on him, too proud of her. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm ruining him with expectations he can't meet. "There's more," Dad said quietly. "About the car, the money, everything I saw but never stopped. I was a coward." "Why give this to me now?" "Because you were strong enough to do what I couldn't. Set boundaries, demand accountability, risk being the villain in their story to do what's right." Police sirens wailed in the distance. More arrests, probably. "Riley's having a girl," I said. "I know. She called me last week. Wants me to be part of the baby's life, but only if I promise to keep Gunnar away." He smiled sadly. "First grandchild, and this is how it happens." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom's number. "How dare you let this happen to your family, after everything we've done for you?" I deleted it without responding. "I have an appointment next month," I said, showing Dad the IVF schedule. "To try for my own baby." "Alone?" "Independent," I corrected. "There's a difference." He nodded slowly. "Your mother used to say, 'Family helps family,' but she meant family serves family. Serves her. I see that now. Better late than never. Would you let me know how the treatments go?" I studied him. This man who'd failed me so many times, but was finally choosing differently. "You can start by buying me coffee," I said. "I have a lot of paperwork to review." As we walked to the cafe across the street, my phone lit up one last time. A message from Riley. "Found out today she's definitely a girl. Thinking of naming her Phoebe. Hope that's okay. Strong names make strong women." I smiled, tucking the phone away. The autumn air was crisp, full of possibilities. Somewhere across town, my brother and mother were learning about consequences. Somewhere in Portland, my niece was growing, already named for strength. And here, in this moment, I was exactly where I needed to be. Not running, not hiding, not sacrificing, just living, on my own terms. Dad held the cafe door open. "Ready?" "Yes," I said. "I think I finally am."
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia Collins. "Sign it or lose everything," Eleanor said, sliding the transfer papers across the table with a venomous smirk. Behind her, Rebecca casually flipped through a stack of cash, her painted nails skimming over the inheritance my grandfather had left me, like it was already hers. I never imagined I'd end up here, cornered in my own home, watching my mother-in-law and sister-in-law scheme to rob me blind. The inheritance wasn't theirs to touch. It wasn't even Thomas's. It was mine. Grandpa Jack left it to me, his little owl, because he trusted me to protect what he had built after my parents died. Eleanor's voice sliced through my spiraling thoughts. This can go smoothly, Olivia, or it can go very badly for you and Thomas. Her manicured fingers tapped a rhythm on the polished mahogany, a sound that had grated on my nerves for years. I forced myself to keep calm, my eyes flicking to the documents. This wasn't just $2.8 million, it was my future, my independence. I don't understand, I said evenly. Why do you think you're entitled to this? Grandpa Jack left this to me. Rebecca scoffed, her laugh sharp and cruel. Oh, don't play innocent. You probably manipulated that poor old man into rewriting his will. Everyone knows he wasn't in his right mind at the end. My chest tightened with fury. Don't you dare. Grandpa Jack was sharper than anyone I've ever known, right up to the day he passed. You don't get to rewrite history just because it suits you. I turned to Eleanor, my voice firm. And you met him, you know exactly the kind of man he was. Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. Regardless, Rebecca's in the middle of a very messy divorce. She needs security. As family, you should be willing to help. Family, the word left a bitter taste in my mouth. In Eleanor's eyes, I'd never been part of their family. Not really. I was the kindergarten teacher from the wrong side of town, the woman who'd stolen her precious Thomas away from the society debutantes she deemed worthy. Where's Thomas? I asked, the realization hitting me that he wasn't here. Does he know about this? Eleanor's predatory smile widened. Thomas understands that family comes first. He agrees this is the best course of action for everyone involved. The words hit like a punch to the gut. He agreed? Without even telling me? I had such high hopes for you, Olivia. Eleanor sighed, feigning disappointment. But your refusal to support Rebecca in her time of need proves what I've always suspected. You don't belong in this family. Rebecca stepped closer, her hands gripping my shoulders with unsettling force. Sign the papers, Liv. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. I stared at the documents, Eleanor's smug face blurring as anger and betrayal clouded my vision. This wasn't just greed, it was control. Eleanor had spent years trying to undermine me, and now she thought she found the perfect way to force me out for good. And if I refuse? I asked quietly, already anticipating the answer. Eleanor leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. Then I'll have no choice but to share some interesting discoveries about your teaching credentials. It would be ashamed if the school board received an anonymous tip. My head snapped up. That's a lie. My credentials are flawless. I earned every inch of my degree. Perhaps, she replied, her tone syrupy sweet. But in the digital age, it's so easy to create discrepancies. And with my connections, I doubt you get the benefit of the doubt. Rebecca resumed her humming, counting cash with theatrical glee. Think of it as an investment in family harmony, she chirped. I clenched my fists under the table, my grandfather's voice echoing in my memory. Always stand your ground, little owl. Don't let anyone push you around. But this wasn't just about standing my ground. I needed to be smart, strategic. They'd always underestimated me, the quiet kindergarten teacher who didn't belong in their world of old money and power plays. My fingers curled around the pen, steadying as an idea began to form. Let them think they'd won. Slowly, deliberately, I signed the papers. Eleanor's triumph was palpable as she snatched them back. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? She cooed. Rebecca beamed, clutching the briefcase full of cash like it was a prize. They left without a backward glance, too busy celebrating to notice the faint glint of metal at my collar. My grandmother's brooch, worn to every family meeting, hadn't just been an heirloom. It was a recording device. Eleanor and Rebecca thought this was the end of the game. They had no idea it was only the beginning. The next few weeks were a masterclass in patience. While Eleanor and Rebecca paraded their victory like peacocks, I perfected my role as the docile, defeated daughter-in-law. But beneath the surface, I was methodically setting the pieces into place. I can't believe how calm you are about this, Lisa, my best friend, said as we sat in our favorite cafe. Her voice carried a mix of outrage and disbelief. They stole your inheritance, Olivia. $2.8 million. I stirred my latte slowly, watching the foam swirl. Remember when I told you my grandfather was just a simple accountant? I said, my voice quiet but firm. That wasn't entirely true. Before his retirement, Grandpa Jack had been a forensic accountant for the FBI, specializing in exposing financial fraud. Growing up, he made it our special game. While other kids played tag, I learned to follow money trails, uncover irregularities, and piece together hidden schemes. The money was never the endgame, Lisa, I explained, setting my cup down. It was the bait. I opened my laptop, revealing a digital vault of evidence I'd been compiling for years. Every suspicious transaction from Eleanor's real estate firm, every shady property deal, every blatant instance of tax evasion, all meticulously documented. The recording of them threatening me was just the final piece. I continued scrolling through files. But this is the real weapon. The next day, I visited James Morton, one of Grandpa Jack's old colleagues and now a senior partner at Sterling and Morton Law. He smiled as I walked in, pulling a thick envelope from his desk drawer. "Your grandfather asked me to hold on to these until you needed them," he said, sliding it across the polished wood. Inside was the crown jewel of evidence, a detailed web of Eleanor's most intricate schemes. Shell companies, money laundering, and fraudulent real estate transactions, painstakingly documented by my grandfather over the years. "There's one more thing," James said, handing me a USB drive. "He left this too. Said you'd know what to do when the time came." That evening, Thomas finally broached the subject of my attitude since signing over the inheritance. "Mom says you've been cold at family dinners," he started, his tone accusatory. "Can't you just appreciate that we're helping Rebecca through a tough time?" I studied my husband carefully, feeling a pang of pity more than anger. "Tell me, Thomas," I asked, my voice steady. "Did you even hesitate when your mother suggested taking my inheritance? Did you think about me at all?" His silence said everything. The next morning, I booked a meeting with Eleanor's fiercest rival, Victoria Kane. For years, Victoria had tried to expose Eleanor's fraudulent dealings, but she never had enough evidence. Victoria's eyes widened as she reviewed the files I brought. "This is staggering," she breathed. "With this, we cold." "Destroy her," I finished, cutting her off. "But that's not the goal. Not yet." I outlined my plan, watching as Victoria's smile grew with each detail. By the time I left her office, we had a pact that would change the game entirely. Sunday dinner arrived and Eleanor was in rare form. She gloated about Rebecca's new car, bought with my inheritance, as Rebecca grinned smugly. "Oh, Olivia," Rebecca said sweetly, "I thought you'd like to know. I'm using some of the money to open a prep school. Isn't that perfect? We'll practically be colleagues." The irony nearly made me laugh. They still saw me as the naive kindergarten teacher, blissfully unaware of their games. They had no idea what tomorrow would bring. As I helped Eleanor with the dishes, playing the dutiful daughter-in-law one final time, she patted my head condescendingly. "See, Olivia? This is what family harmony looks like. Things are so much better when you cooperate." I dried the last plate and smiled faintly, my voice even. "You're right, Eleanor. Everything is exactly as it should be." Walking home that night, I checked my phone. A message from Victoria awaited. "Everything's ready. Operation Karma starts tomorrow." I thought of Grandpa Jack, his words echoing in my mind. The best revenge is letting them think they've won, until the moment they realize they've lost everything. Tomorrow, Eleanor and Rebecca would finally learn who I truly was, not just a kindergarten teacher, but my grandfather's there in every way that mattered. I typed one word back to Victoria: begin. Monday morning arrived with thunderclouds, an omen, perhaps, for what was about to unfold. I sat in Victoria Kane's office, eyes fixed on the screens as our carefully laid plan came to life. Channel 7 news breaking story: major fraud investigation launched into Collins' real estate empire. The anchor announced, anonymous sources have provided evidence of extensive money laundering and tax evasion. My phone lit up with notifications. Thomas's name appeared 6 times in a row. I ignored every call. "They've arrived," Victoria said, nodding toward the security feed. Eleanor and Rebecca stormed into the Collins real estate lobby, their faces pale and frantic. Minutes later, every local news station aired the recording of their inheritance extortion, blasting their threats for the world to hear. "This is only the beginning," I murmured, my grandfather's voice echoing in my mind. "Time for phase 2. Victoria picked up her phone and made the call we'd rehearsed for weeks. Within hours, her company announced a hostile takeover of Collins' real estate, fortified by the mountain of evidence we provided. Stock prices plummeted, dragging Eleanor's carefully curated empire down with them. Eleanor's call came exactly when I expected. "What have you done?" she screeched, her voice shrill with desperation. You vindictive little. Me? I interrupted, calm and measured. I'm just a kindergarten teacher, remember? But you might want to ask Rebecca about those shell companies she's been managing for you. The ones in her name. The line went silent. Then, barely a whisper. How did you? My grandfather taught me well, I said, my tone like steel. And as for the inheritance you coerced me into signing over, it's being returned with interest. Fraud under duress doesn't hold up well in court, especially with recorded proof. Rebecca's meltdown on social media was almost theatrical. You ruined everything, she raged in a post. We were trying to help you fit in. I replied with a single line. Karma sends her regards. By evening, Thomas came storming into the house, waving papers. The company's gone. Mom's being investigated. What did you do? I handed him a manila envelope. Divorce papers. I figured while the lawyers were already busy, we might as well make it official. His face crumpled. But I love you. No, Thomas, I said, my voice cold. You loved having someone your mother could control. That person doesn't exist anymore. The aftermath was swift. Eleanor's empire crumbled in weeks. Rebecca's divorce settlement was reopened when her fraudulent finances were exposed. And Thomas? He learned too late what it meant to bet on the wrong team. 6 months later, I stood in my new office at Kane and Collins Real Estate. Victoria's insistence on the partnership had been non-negotiable. Above my desk hung 2 frames, my grandfather's photo and my teaching degree. I still kept my kindergarten job. Some battles were worth fighting, but so were the simple joys. Miss Collins, my assistant called from the door. Your 2 o'clock is here. Something about discussing terms? Eleanor stepped in, unrecognizable in her plain attire. No designer suits, no sparkling diamonds, just a woman stripped of the power she once wielded. Olivia, she began, her voice trembling. I've come to beg. No need, I interrupted, folding my hands on the desk. The terms are simple. Admit everything, return every penny you stole, and I'll ensure you avoid jail time. I smiled, the same smile she once used to dismiss me. After all, isn't that what family does? Help each other. She flinched, hearing her own words turned back on her. Later that evening, I placed a bouquet of flowers on my grandfather's grave. The cool breeze carried a sense of closure. You were right, Grandpa, I whispered. Sometimes karma needs a little help. As I stood, my phone buzzed with a message from Victoria, another merger opportunity, my new life called, full of potential and promise. Eleanor and Rebecca thought they were stealing an inheritance. Instead, they gave me something far more valuable. The push to become the person I was always meant to be. They say karma finds everyone eventually, but sometimes she needs someone to open the door and show her where to strike. Hi, I'm Olivia Thompson, and 3 months ago, my sister-in-law Diana turned my life upside down. She showed up at our doorstep with 3 oversized suitcases and a sob story about her failed marriage. What was supposed to be just a few days quickly spiraled into chaos, with my mother-in-law Margaret orchestrating a complete upheaval of my home, including demoting me to the unfinished basement so Diana could claim our master bedroom. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. From the moment I married Michael 2 years ago, Margaret and Diana made it clear I was an outsider. The help Diana once hissed to her friend at our wedding, thinking I couldn't hear. But Michael was different, supportive, loving, and quick to shut down their digs. At least he used to be. The night Diana arrived, mascara streaked down her cheeks as she collapsed dramatically into Michael's arms. Mark left me, she sobbed. He's been cheating for months. Michael shot me a pleading look, and I nodded. Of course we'd help. You can take the guest room, I offered, already grabbing fresh linens. But Diana's eyes flitted to our bedroom door, ajar just enough to reveal the king-size bed and bay windows I painstakingly decorated. The guest room. Margaret's voice crackled through Diana's phone on speaker. I hadn't realized she was listening. That tiny, dusty space? Absolutely not. Diana needs proper rest after her trauma. Mom, I don't want to impose, Diana murmured, though she made no move to object. Nonsense. Margaret snapped. Michael, your sister needs support. Olivia can make do elsewhere. She's young and adaptable. Isn't that right, dear? The way she said dear made my teeth grind. Before I could respond, Michael shifted uncomfortably. Maybe just for a few days, honey? Diana's really upset. And just like that, I lost my bedroom. Diana moved into the master suite, complete with a memory foam mattress I'd saved for months to buy. I ended up in the guest room, but Margaret wasn't finished. The next morning, she marched in with a contractor in tow. The guest room's air quality is atrocious, she announced, brandishing a device that looked suspiciously like a phone screensaver. Diana's allergies would flare up. We'll need to renovate. Olivia, you understand. And where am I supposed to sleep? I asked, watching my belongings get hauled out. Margaret's gaze slid to the basement door. There's plenty of space down there, just needs a little elbow grease. Think of it as a project, something to keep you busy. Michael started to object, but Diana burst into tears. I should've just gone to a hotel, she wailed. That sealed my fate. The basement was dark, damp, and littered with old Christmas decorations and exposed pipes. It was ironic, really, my interior design business was thriving. Yet I found myself laying a cot between a water heater and a stack of dusty boxes. It's just temporary, Michael assured me. But as days turned into weeks, Diana's recovery became a parade of wine nights and spa days. Funded, no doubt, by Mark's cheating money. The master bath became her personal vanity, while my toiletries were relegated to a rusty shelf near the basement sink. Margaret visited daily, her criticism wrapped in a sugary smile. Olivia, dear, I noticed the upstairs windows could use a cleaning. Though I suppose you wouldn't know from down here. Or, I'm teaching Diana your lasagna recipe. She's such a natural. Poor thing needs something to keep her mind off things. The final straw came at Sunday dinner. Margaret arrived with a real estate agent in tow and announced, "We found the perfect condo for Diana, right in Olivia's office building." Convenient, isn't it? Diana chimed in, flashing a grin. I can even help with your design business. Mom said you've been overwhelmed lately. I never said, I started, but Margaret waved me off. We're all family, dear. Diana's been such a blessing already. She even redecorated your old bedroom. It looks stunning. I clenched my fork, picturing my carefully curated decor, now covered in Diana's chaotic Pinterest knockoffs. Actually, I said, my voice sharper than I intended, my business isn't a family venture. And I don't need help. The room went silent. Margaret's smile tightened. We'll discuss it later, she said, her tone icy. Diana, show Olivia the paint samples you picked for the basement. Since you'll be staying longer, we should make it livable. Paint samples. For my basement exile. I stood abruptly, knocking over my water glass. I need some air, I muttered, heading for the door. As I stepped outside, I heard Diana's theatrical whisper, "See, Mom? I told you she's been so unstable. Michael, we're just worried about her." I sat in my car, gripping the wheel, when my phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Lily lit up the screen. 911. Pipe burst in my kitchen. Need your expertise ASAP. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. On my way, I typed back. Sometimes a crisis is exactly what you need, and Lily's kitchen wasn't the only thing I planned to fix. I pulled into Lily's driveway, my mind churning with frustration over Diana's latest move. Inside, the smell of damp wood hit me immediately. Her kitchen was a wreck, with water-stained cabinets and warped flooring. "It's bad," Lily admitted, grimacing as she handed me a coffee. "But you look worse." Spill. We settled into her living room, and the words poured out. Diana's melodrama, Margaret's constant interference, Michael's inability to stand up for me. By the end of my rant, Lily's face had gone from sympathetic to stone-cold furious. "So let me get this straight," she said, setting her mug down with deliberate precision. "Your sister-in-law moves in, takes over your bedroom, and now she's scheming to take over your business. And Michael's just letting this happen." "He's stuck in the middle," I said weakly, though even I didn't believe it anymore. "No, he's stuck under his mother's thumb," she shot back. Grabbing her phone, she started scrolling. "You remember Karen from college? She's a real estate lawyer now. And I think you need to hear what she has to say about tenant rights." "Tenant rights?" I repeated, confused. Lily fixed me with a knowing look. "You're on the deed, right? Equal ownership with Michael?" I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "Then legally, they can't push you out of your own bedroom. Diana doesn't have a single right to be there." For the next 2 hours, Lily, Karen, on speakerphone. and I formed a battle plan. Karen walked us through everything: property laws, business protections, even tenant agreements. By the time I left, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: empowered. The house was quiet when I returned. Upstairs, the flicker of the TV confirmed Diana was comfortably ensconced in my bedroom. Michael was snoring softly in his recliner, a half-empty beer on the table beside him. I stared at him for a long moment, debating. Then I made my decision. "Michael," I said, shaking his shoulder. He jolted awake, blinking groggily. "What's wrong?" "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Now." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Honey, can't this wait until morning?" "No, it can't. This stops tonight, Michael. Either Diana moves to the guest room, or I'm moving out and taking half the business accounts with me." That woke him up. "What? You can't." "I can. I spoke to a lawyer today. Funny thing about joint assets in a marriage, they're joint." I crossed my arms, forcing him to meet my gaze. "I don't want to do this, but I will if you keep letting your family treat me like this." Michael stared at me, his expression shifting from confusion to guilt. I didn't realize, I knew things were tense, but... Tense? I interrupted, my voice rising. "Michael, I'm sleeping in a basement next to the water heater while your sister throws wine parties in our bedroom. And now she's eyeing my business too." His face went pale. "What are you talking about?" Before I could respond, footsteps echoed on the stairs. Diana appeared in the doorway, wearing my silk robe and holding a glass of wine. "Everything okay down here?" she asked sweetly, though her tone was anything but. "Actually, no," I said, standing. "We're having a private conversation, Diana." "Oh, I'm sure it's nothing Mom and I can't help with," she said, her voice dripping with Fox concern. "Michael, you don't have to listen to this. I'll call Mom." "No," Michael said, cutting her off. "No more calling Mom. This is between us." For a moment, Diana's mask slipped, revealing pure rage. But she recovered quickly, pressing a hand to her chest. "Michael, I can't believe you're taking her side. After everything I've been through." "Enough," Michael said, his voice firm. "Diana, you need to move to the guest room, tonight." Diana's eyes narrowed, her usual tears failing to materialize. "Fine," she snapped. "But don't think this is over." She stormed upstairs, slamming the door to my bedroom. Michael turned to me, his shoulders slumping. "I've been an idiot," he admitted quietly. "Yes, you have." I said that my tone was softer now. "But you're starting to fix it." The rest of the night was spent moving my things back upstairs. As I hung my clothes in the closet, Michael stood in the doorway watching me. "I'll call the locksmith in the morning," he said, "and maybe we should look into counseling." I nodded, hope blooming in my chest. "That's a good idea." For the first time in months, I slept in my own bed. But the battle wasn't over. The next morning, I arrived at my office to find Diana sitting in my chair, Margaret beside her with a folder full of papers. "We need to talk business," Margaret said smoothly, her smile as sharp as a blade. "Family business." I stood in the doorway of my office, taking in the scene. Diana was lounging in my chair, spinning lazily side to side as though she owned the place. Margaret stood beside her, a picture of calculated poise, her handbag dangling from her arm like a weapon. They didn't even have the decency to wait for me to arrive before staging their coup. "Morning," I said evenly, stepping inside and setting my coffee down. "What's this? A hostile takeover?" Margaret smiled thinly, sliding the stack of papers across the desk. "Not hostile. Practical. We've drawn up some documents to restructure the company, make it more family inclusive." I picked up the papers and quickly skimmed them, my stomach turned. They wanted me to sign over 51% of my company, essentially giving them control of everything I'd built. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice sharp as I dropped the papers back onto the desk. "Serious as a heart attack," Diana said smugly, propping her chin on her hand. "And you might want to reconsider. Mom's had a chat with the Hendersons. They're not too pleased with your recent behavior." My breath caught. The Hendersons' renovation project was my biggest account. If I lost it, it could tank my reputation. "You've been talking to my clients?" I asked, ice creeping into my tone. "Blackmail is such an ugly word," Margaret said, her tone smooth. "But sometimes it's necessary to protect the family's interests. After last night's little spectacle, you've left us no choice." I laughed bitterly, My spectacle. You mean exposing Diana's lies about her divorce? Diana shot forward in her chair, her smirk replaced by a glare. Watch it, Olivia. Things can get very messy for small business owners if the wrong people hear the wrong things. The office door swung open before I could reply. Karen walked in, her heels clicking against the floor, and Mark, Diana's ex-husband, followed close behind. Oh good, Karen said, her voice light. Everyone's here. Saves us the trouble of making this a two-act play. Diana shot up from the chair like it was on fire. Mark? What are you doing here? Filing fraud charges, he said flatly, his gaze locking onto Diana. You emptied our accounts, Diana. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Margaret stepped forward, her composure faltering for the first time. Now see here. Careful, Karen interjected smoothly, holding up her phone. I'd think twice about denying anything. Olivia has recordings of everything you just said. Threats, blackmail, defamation, all admissible in court. Diana's face went pale. You can't use those. I can, I said, cutting her off. Company policy. All business meetings are recorded. The acoustics in here are fantastic, by the way. Margaret sputtered, but Karen wasn't done. She slid 2 more papers onto the desk. This is a cease and desist order preventing either of you from contacting any of Thompson Design's clients. And if you so much as breathe in Olivia's direction without her consent, we'll file this restraining order too. Michael will never let you do this, Margaret hissed. You're tearing this family apart. Michael's voice came from behind her. No, Mom, you are. He stepped into the room, his expression grim. And Olivia isn't alone anymore. Diana's mask cracked completely. Mark, please, she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. This is all just a misunderstanding. Let me explain. Explain it to the court, Mark interrupted coldly. I'm done. Margaret's hands trembled as she clutched her handbag. You'll regret this, she snapped, her voice shaking with fury. Both of you. No, I said, my voice calm and steady. We won't. Now get out of my office. Margaret pulled Diana toward the door, but not before throwing one last venomous glare in my direction. This isn't over, she spat. I look forward to your next attempt, I replied, smiling coolly. It'll be fun to shut that down, too. Once the door closed behind them, the room felt lighter, like a storm had passed, leaving fresh air in its wake. Karen turned to me, a triumphant grin on her face. That went better than expected. Mark, thank you for coming. He nodded, his expression softening. It was the least I could do. I'm glad you're standing up to her. After they left, Michael pulled me into his arms. I am so sorry, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. For everything, for not standing by you sooner. I looked up at him, my heart aching and hopeful at once. We'll fix it, I said. Together. The coming weeks saw a cascade of victories. Diana was charged with fraud, and Margaret's influence over Michael crumbled. The Hendersons, it turned out, had never even spoken to Margaret, and their project continued as planned. They even referred me to 3 new clients. Michael and I began couples counseling, untangling years of manipulation and rebuilding trust. Slowly, we found our way back to each other. 2 months later, as I sat in my home office, now a serene, productive space, I smiled at a text from Lily. Just saw Diana at Starbucks. She's a barista now. Karma's beautiful, isn't it? I laughed softly, setting my phone down. On my desk was a photo from our housewarming party, a celebration of a home free of toxic interference. Life isn't perfect, and family is complicated. But sometimes, standing your ground and fighting for yourself is the only way forward. And when you have people who truly love and support you, even the hardest battles are worth it. Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer Wu. I thought I'd inherited a legacy, 3 generations of family wealth, after my husband's tragic accident. But his mother and sister had different plans, armed with fake evidence and a sinister agenda. The day everything unraveled started just like any other. I was at my dental practice, focused on patient files, when my receptionist hurried in. Dr. Wu, your mother-in-law is here. She seems upset. Before I could respond, Eleanor Chen stormed through the door, clutching her designer handbag like it was a weapon. How dare you? She spat, tossing a manila envelope onto my desk. After everything we've done for you. Her hand, usually steady and composed, trembled as she pointed an accusing finger at me. Behind her, Melissa, my sister-in-law, leaned casually in the doorway, her usual smug grin firmly in place. I opened the envelope, my stomach twisting as staged photos spilled out. They depicted me with a man I didn't even recognize, entering a hotel, having dinner, holding hands. Each photo was meticulously crafted, complete with forged timestamps that painted a damning timeline, supposedly stretching back months before Michael's accident. "These are fake," I said firmly, my voice steady despite the storm churning inside me. "I don't even know this man." Melissa took a step forward, feigning concern. "Oh, Jennifer." We didn't want to believe it either, but then we found these. She produced more papers, bank statements showing transfers I never authorized. Secret accounts, hidden funds. While my brother was dying, you were plotting your escape with your lover, weren't you? My mind raced back to that fateful night 6 months ago. Michael and I had been driving home from his parents' estate after dinner. He was animated, telling me about his plans to modernize Chen Investments once he took over. "Dad's retiring next month," he had said, his eyes bright with excitement. "The company will be ours, Jen. Everything we've dreamed of." Then, out of nowhere, the truck ran the red light. I survived. Michael didn't. "You know this is all a lie," I said, rising to my feet. "Michael and I were happy. We were building a future together." Eleanor's expression turned ice cold. "Were you? Then explain this." She thrust her phone at me, playing a video. It showed me arguing with Michael in his office. My voice rang out clearly. "I can't take this anymore. I wish I'd never married into this family." I remembered that moment vividly. It wasn't real. It was a theater rehearsal. Melissa had been directing one of her amateur plays, and Michael had helped me rehearse my lines. We'd been laughing between takes, but in this doctored version, the laughter was gone and only the tension remained. "That's from a rehearsal," I protested. "Melissa, you were there. You were directing." But Melissa merely shook her head, feigning pity. "You're grasping at straws, Jennifer. We have proof, photos, bank records, even your so-called escape plans. Lying won't help you now." Eleanor stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. "Did you really think we'd let our family's legacy fall into the hands of a gold digger? That we'd stand by while you inherited everything?" And then it hit me. This wasn't just an attack on my character, it was a plot to steal Michael's inheritance. His grandfather had built Chen Investments from the ground up, turning it into an empire worth millions. The will was clear. In the event of Michael's death, the entire estate would pass to me. Unless, of course, I was proven unfaithful. "You set this up," I said, glaring at Melissa. She had always resented that Michael was chosen to lead the company over her. "You fabricated all of it. The photos, the video, the bank statements." "Do you have proof?" Melissa asked sweetly. "Because we certainly do. And once the board sees it, how do you think they'll react to Michael's unfaithful widow taking control?" Eleanor gathered the damning documents and tucked them back into her envelope. "You have two options, Jennifer. Sign over your inheritance quietly or watch us destroy everything. Your career, your reputation, your life." She smiled coldly. "Choose wisely." As they walked out, I stood motionless, staring at the mess they'd left behind. My reflection in the window looked pale and shaken, just how they wanted me to look. But beneath the shock, something else stirred. Determination. Fury. They thought they had me cornered, but they didn't realize who they were dealing with. Before I became a dentist, I put myself through college by working in its security. And if they wanted to play games with fabricated evidence, they were about to find out they weren't the only ones who knew how to manipulate digital trails. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Marcus, I need your help. How fast can you analyze some doctored photos and videos?" The game had begun, and I had every intention of winning. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, driving home in the fading twilight. Scenarios ran through my mind, each worse than the last. Eleanor and Melissa had clearly orchestrated this attack over months. But they'd overlooked one crucial flaw. Digital footprints always leave a trail. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed someone waiting on my doorstep. It was David, Michael's best friend and business partner. His expression was grave. "Jen, we need to talk," he said as I got out of the car. "The board called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning." They've received some concerning evidence. Let me guess, I said as I unlocked my door, motioning for him to come inside. Photos, videos, and bank statements. David followed me, looking uneasy. They're claiming you had an affair, that you planned to sell your shares after inheriting. Melissa presented everything to the board earlier today. Of course she had. They weren't just pressuring me to give up the inheritance, they were dismantling every pillar of support I had. The photos are fake, David. The video was from a theater rehearsal, and the bank statements were forged, I said firmly, opening my laptop, and I can prove it. David hesitated, then sighed. Jen, I want to believe you. But what? I snapped, frustration boiling over. Melissa's evidence looks too polished, so it must be real. She's had months to fine-tune her lies, ever since Michael. My voice caught in my throat. Ever since the accident. Before David could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. I put him on speaker. Jen, you need to see this, he said. Those photos? They were generated using high-end ad technology. This wasn't your average Photoshop job. It was expensive, top-tier work. As for the video, I've isolated splicing artifacts. It's a composite, pieced together from multiple clips. Can you prove it? I asked, my heart pounding. Better, Marcus replied confidently. I traced the software purchase. Someone bought access to advanced AI imaging tools 3 months ago. The payment came from an offshore account, but guess what? It was tied to a Chen Investments credit card. Melissa's? I guessed. Exactly. She tried to cover her tracks. But she's not as tech-savvy as she thinks. Oh, and about those bank statements, they were fabricated using internal templates stolen from Chen Investments' system. The access logs show. Eleanor's credentials. I finished already knowing the answer. Bingo, Marcus confirmed. David's face drained of color. The CEO's wife using company resources to forge evidence? This could ruin them. It should, I said quietly. Now, pull up the security footage from March 15th. David did as I asked, and we watched the unedited video. It showed everything. Michael and me rehearsing lines, Melissa directing, even Eleanor standing by the door, washing. There was no room for doubt. The raw footage completely undermined their narrative. Marcus's voice came through again. One more thing. I found emails between Eleanor and Melissa dating back to shortly after Michael's accident. They were working with a private investigator, coordinating surveillance on you and planning how to present their fake evidence. David ran a hand through his hair. If you present all this tomorrow, you'll have enough to not only clear your name but also expose them. I nodded. I'll need your support. Eleanor and Melissa think they've already won. They have no idea I've uncovered their scheme. With David's help, I worked through the night alongside Marcus, compiling a detailed presentation. We gathered everything, proof of the AI purchases, email correspondence outlining their conspiracy, forensic analysis debunking the photos and videos, and most importantly, the raw security footage that exposed the truth. At dawn, David handed me one final weapon, Michael's personal journal. He'd found it in the office safe, tucked away where no one had thought to look. The last entry, written just days before his death, revealed everything. Mom and Melissa are pressuring me to change the inheritance, but I won't. They've never understood. This company isn't about money or control. It's about legacy, integrity, and trust. Jen embodies all of that. She's the only person I trust to carry on Grandpa's vision. No matter what they try, this is my decision. The company will go to her. I clutched the journal to my chest, tears blurring my vision. Even in death, Michael was still protecting me. Just then, my phone buzzed again. A message from Eleanor. The board meeting starts in 1 hour. Last chance to sign over the inheritance and walk away quietly. I smiled, a new sense of resolve hardening in my chest as I typed my response. Don't worry, Eleanor. I wouldn't miss this meeting for the world. They thought they'd orchestrated my downfall. Instead, they had paved the way for their own undoing. I arrived at Chen Investments 15 minutes early, clutching a USB drive with irrefutable evidence. Eleanor and Melissa were already in the boardroom, looking every bit the picture of polished confidence. Their smiles wavered only slightly when they saw my calm, collected demeanor. Still trying to save face, Melissa muttered as I settled into my seat. Just sign the papers and leave with some dignity. The board members filed in, their expressions serious. Eleanor stood composed and poised in a designer suit, ready to make her case. "Thank you for coming. Today you must address some deeply troubling revelations about Jennifer Wu's character and activities during my son's life." She began her presentation. Photo after photo, video after video, and forged bank statements, each one more damning than the last. I sat still, watching as the fabricated evidence unfolded. Board members exchanged disapproving glances, their faces a mixture of disappointment and suspicion. And now Eleanor finished. I asked the board to vote on removing Jennifer Wu from her inherited position and transferring control to the rightful heir, my daughter, Melissa. I stood up, calm but resolute. Before we proceed with the vote, I have evidence of my own to present. I inserted my USB drive into the computer, glancing briefly at Eleanor's tightening expression. Let's begin with the photos. On screen, the technical analysis appeared, confirming the photos were AI generated. Pay for with a Chen Investments Company card, I added, displaying the transaction records. By you, Melissa. The room filled with hushed murmurs. Melissa's face drained of color. The video? I continued. Here's the original, unedited footage from the security cameras. As you can see, we were rehearsing for Melissa's amateur theater production, and these emails between Eleanor and Melissa reveal their entire scheme to fabricate evidence and steal my inheritance. Eleanor's composure cracked. "This is madness," she spat. "You're fabricating evidence to destroy us." "Like you fabricated everything to ruin me?" I shot back, pulling Michael's journal from my bag. "David found this in your office safe. Shall I read Michael's last entry about why he chose me to lead Chen Investments?" Melissa lunged for the journal, but David stepped forward, blocking her. "It's over," he said softly. "The truth is out." The chairman of the board cleared his throat. "Mrs. Chen, Miss Chen, these are grave accusations. Using company resources to create fraudulent documents, attempting to steal an inheritance through deception. These are criminal acts. You can't prove anything." Melissa screamed, though her voice wavered with panic. "Actually," I said, "Marcus has already delivered all the evidence to the authorities. I wouldn't be surprised if they're currently seizing your computers." Eleanor slumped in her chair, the last remnants of her carefully constructed facade crumbling. "We were protecting the family legacy," she whispered, her voice thick with defeat. "You don't belong here. You don't deserve any of this." "No," I replied firmly. "You were protecting your own interests. Michael chose me because I share his values, integrity, honesty, trust. Everything you and Melissa sought to destroy." The board's vote was swift and unanimous. Not only would I retain my inherited position, but Eleanor and Melissa would now face criminal charges for fraud and corporate espionage. As security escorted them out of the room, I heard Melissa's final, venomous words. "This isn't over." But it was over. Their elaborate plot had fallen apart because they underestimated both my ability to uncover the truth and Michael's foresight. They'd never understood that a true family legacy isn't about bloodlines or power. It's about the principles that endure. 1 year later, Chen Investments was thriving under my leadership. The scandal made brief headlines, but our clients remained loyal, trusting in the values Michael's grandfather had instilled. Eleanor and Melissa accepted plea deals to avoid jail time, but they were permanently barred from the company. Every so often, I visit Michael's grave to update him on our progress. The growth of the company, the changes I'm making, the legacy I'm preserving. And when the wind rustles through the trees, I swear I can hear his voice echoing, just as it did in that final journal entry. "You're the only one I trust to carry on his legacy the right way." He was right to trust me, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. My name is Rachel Chen, and at 35, I'm the proud owner of a thriving bakery chain. But last year, my mother-in-law, Linda, made it her mission to turn my success into a battleground. I'll never forget the day she strolled into my flagship store, her smirk as sharp as a knife. "Your croissants are stale, dear," she declared, her voice ringing out across the crowded cafe. "No wonder your sales are dropping." I clenched my jaw to keep the tears at bay. Linda had already cost me a crucial business deal earlier that week, yet here she was again, sowing chaos. The irony? Just hours before, she'd asked me to invest my savings in her retirement fund. But this wasn't the start of Linda's campaign against me. To understand how it all unraveled, you'd have to go back 5 years to when sweet success was just a dream. A small corner bakery that became the center of my world. Baking had always been my solace, my escape after losing both my parents. When I met Michael, Linda's son, he became my biggest cheerleader. "You're incredible, Ratch," he'd say, biting into whatever new creation I'd whipped up. "The world needs this." With his encouragement and every penny of my savings, I opened my first shop in downtown Seattle. Those early days were grueling. I'd wake at 3 a.m. to bake, run the counter, and close up long after sunset. Slowly, the hard work paid off. My matcha cream puffs and honey lavender croissants turned heads, and soon sweet success was the talk of the town. That's when Linda began to take notice. "Rachel, darling," she said at Sunday dinner one evening, her tone as sugary as my frosting. "I had no idea your little hobby could actually make money." Her words stung, but I smiled politely. After all, she was family. Years later, when I was ready to expand, Linda's interest grew sharper. A prime spot at Pike Place Market became available, and with a newly approved loan, I was ready to take the leap. The night I shared the news, Linda's eyes glinted with an intensity I should have heeded. "Oh, sweetie," she said, swirling her wine. "Expanding too quickly is risky. Remember Jenny's cupcakes? They crashed and burned. But don't worry, I have years of business experience. I'd be happy to guide you." I declined, thanking her but making it clear I had things under control. The next morning, my contractor called in a frenzy. Multiple code violations had been reported at the new location. The delays in repairs cost me 3 months and nearly $100,000. Later, I found out Linda was close friends with the inspector's wife. Still, I pressed on, and sweet success flourished. Our new Pike Place location was a hit, leading to franchise opportunities and a feature in Northwest Business Monthly. But Linda wasn't celebrating my achievements. Instead, she made her move during a family dinner. "Rachel dear," she began with practiced sweetness, "I'm so proud of what you've accomplished, with my son's help, of course. His connections really opened doors for you, didn't they?" I nearly choked on my wine. "Actually, Linda, Michael and I have always kept our careers separate. He's incredibly supportive, but sweet success is my business." Her smile turned brittle. "Oh, so all those corporate orders from Michael's clients were just a coincidence." Before I could respond, she pivoted. "Well, since you're doing so well, we should discuss family obligations. Your father-in-law and I aren't getting any younger, and our retirement portfolio took a hit." She trailed off, waiting for me to connect the dots. When I didn't, she leaned in. "We'll need about $500,000 to maintain our lifestyle." The room fell silent. My hands trembled as I placed my fork down. "Linda," I said carefully, "sweet success is my company, built with my own savings and hard work. I'm reinvesting my profits into expansion, not personal loans." Her face darkened. "So this is how you repay family loyalty." That night, I realized Linda didn't see me as an entrepreneur or even as her son's wife. To her, I was a pawn in her games, and she was willing to destroy everything I'd built to get what she wanted. The next morning, I logged into my company's social media accounts and froze. Overnight, dozens of one-star reviews had been posted, accusing us of stale pastries and food poisoning. Our morning rush was half its usual crowd, whispers of the reviews spreading like wildfire. That's when Linda walked in, her smile cold as steel. "Your croissants are stale, dear," she said again, loud enough for everyone to hear. As I watched a potential corporate client slip out the door, I realized Linda wasn't just meddling, she was waging war. But sweet success wasn't just a business. It was my dream, my resilience, and my life's work. And I wasn't about to let Linda destroy it. The following weeks were a whirlwind of chaos, each morning unveiling a new crisis that bore Linda's invisible fingerprints. Wholesale orders were inexplicably canceled. Health inspectors began showing up unannounced during our busiest hours, spurred by anonymous complaints. Even our suppliers, long reliable, suddenly doubled their prices, citing vague market fluctuations. I confided in Michael, hoping he'd see what was happening, but he was caught between loyalty to his mother and support for me. "Babe, are you sure Mom's behind this?" he asked hesitantly one evening, glancing at the grim sales reports on my laptop. "Maybe it's just bad luck." I slammed the lid shut, the frustration bubbling over. "Bad luck doesn't send fake food poisoning reports to the health department." I shot back, then softened my tone. I'm sorry. I'm Jess. I'm watching everything I've worked for unravel, and your mother is enjoying every second of it. He sighed, torn but silent. That Sunday, Linda dealt her next blow. During our customary family dinner, she casually voiced her concerns about my mental state, ensuring everyone heard. I'm worried about Rachel, she sighed dramatically, slicing into her roast beef with a calculated pause. The stress of running a failing business can make people unstable. Maybe it's time to consider selling before things get worse. I gripped my water glass, barely containing my anger. My business isn't failing, Linda. At least not without a little help. See what I mean? Linda turned to Michael, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Paranoid accusations. Honey, maybe Rachel should see someone. I know an excellent therapist. That night, sleep eluded me. Restless, I reviewed our security camera footage from the bakery. A strange movement caught my eye. A familiar figure slipping into the kitchen after hours. Zooming in, my stomach churned. It was Linda, using the spare key Michael had for emergencies. The next morning, I checked our storage room and confirmed my worst fears. The premium Madagascar vanilla we use for our signature pastries had been replaced with cheap imitation extract. The high-end chocolate was swapped for low-grade cooking chocolate. Small, insidious changes that would erode our quality and reputation over time. I confronted Linda that evening in her perfectly curated living room. Armed with security footage and receipts, I laid out the evidence. She sat unfazed, sipping tea with a smug smile. Really, Rachel? Security footage? How desperate. She placed her cup down gracefully. There's still time to fix this. My retirement fund offer stands. I shook my head, the realization hitting me. This isn't about money anymore, is it? You just can't stand that I succeeded without you. Linda's smile vanished, replaced by a cold glare. You married into this family, dear. Everything you have, you owe to us. I'm giving you a choice. Fund our retirement or watch your little bakery empire crumble. I stood, my hands trembling with anger. No, Linda. I'm giving you a choice. Stop sabotaging my business, or I'll show Michael and everyone else exactly who you are. She laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. Who do you think I'll believe? The respected mother who's only looking out for her son? Or the unstable entrepreneur spiraling into a breakdown? As I left her house, my phone buzzed. It was a notification. Our largest corporate client, Michael's law firm, had just canceled all standing orders. The message was loud and clear. Linda wasn't done. But in her arrogance, she'd overlooked something crucial. There was a paper trail. The fake reviews? All traced back to her IP address. The supplier price hike? The owner was one of her golf buddies. And the security footage? That was just the start. I stayed up all night piecing it all together. Every coincidence, every sabotage attempt, every manipulative dig. 5 years of Linda's games laid bare in a meticulous dossier. The next morning would change everything. Linda thought she was dismantling my business piece by piece, but in truth, she handed me the tools to expose her. Not just to Michael, but to everyone who believed in her facade. As I finalized my plans, my phone lit up with a text from Linda. Last chance, dear. The retirement fund or your business. Choose wisely. I smiled, thinking of the meeting I'd scheduled with Michael and his father later that morning. Linda had no idea what was coming. Morning arrived, and I walked into Michael's law firm, clutching my evidence folder like a lifeline. His father, Richard, was already there, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. Rachel, what's this emergency meeting about? Before I could answer, Linda swept into the room, her sharp heels clicking on the polished floor. I got your text, Richard. What's she doing here? She froze when she saw the folder in my hands, her confidence faltering for the first time. Please have a seat, I said, keeping my voice steady as I set up my laptop. There's something everyone here needs to see. For the next 30 minutes, I presented my case. The security footage of Linda tampering with ingredients. Screenshots of fake reviews linked to her IP address. Emails from suppliers confirming her interference. Bank records showing suspicious transfers made just before every health inspection. Michael's face darkened with each revelation. Mom, how could you? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Linda's laugh was brittle, her composure unraveling. Oh, don't be ridiculous. She's making all this up because she can't handle running a business. Richard, surely you don't believe. The evidence speaks for itself, I interrupted, clicking to the next slide. And I've invited someone to join us. The door opened and Detective Sarah Morris stepped inside, her badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. Linda, breaking and entering, business sabotage, and attempted extortion are serious charges. I suggest you listen carefully to what Rachel has to say. Linda's face drained of color. You wouldn't dare. I'm family. Michael's voice was steady, but the disappointment was palpable. Family doesn't destroy family, Mom. Dad, show her the statement. Richard pulled out a printed document, his expression grave. Linda, I checked our accounts after Rachel came to me yesterday. We have more than enough for retirement. Care to explain why you've been moving money to a private account? Linda's mask crumbled completely as the truth spilled out. She'd been embezzling from their retirement fund for years to cover gambling debts. Forcing me to contribute was her desperate attempt to plug the holes before Richard noticed. I want to press charges, I said, my voice firm as I looked directly at Linda. But I'll drop them on 2 conditions. First, you publicly clear Sweet Success's name and reputation. Second, you step away from the family business and get professional help for your gambling. Linda glanced around the room, searching for support, but found none. Defeated, she nodded. Fine, she whispered. The following week, Linda issued a public apology that went viral. Due to personal challenges, I spread false claims about Sweet Success Bakery. These statements were entirely fabricated by me. Sweet Success upholds the highest standards of quality, and I deeply regret my actions. The apology was enough to restore faith in the business. Customers flooded back, drawn by both the story of redemption and our forgiveness special. All pastries half price for a week. Lines wrapped around the block, and Sweet Success emerged stronger than ever. Michael and I moved forward, setting clear boundaries with Linda. She entered treatment for her gambling addiction, and Richard became one of my most vocal supporters. A year later, Sweet Success expanded to 10 thriving locations. When Northwest Business Monthly featured us again, this time highlighting resilience in family businesses, Linda saw the article during a therapy session. You know, she told her counselor, I tried to tear Rachel down because I couldn't handle her success. Instead, I only proved how much she deserved it. Today, I write this from our new flagship store, watching happy customers enjoy our signature croissants. Fresh, flaky, and certainly not stale. Every challenge made us stronger, and Linda's journey toward redemption reminds me of something important. Success isn't just about building a business. It's about standing your ground when someone tries to tear you down. And sometimes the sweetest victory isn't revenge. It's watching someone who once sought your downfall confront their demons and find a path to change. Would you have pressed charges in my situation? Or was offering Linda a chance at redemption the right call? Share your thoughts below. My name is Catherine Walsh, and if you told me a year ago that I'd be homeless at 35, I would have laughed in disbelief. But here I am. It all started with a promise, a hollow one from my mother-in-law, Grace. She begged me to sell my house to save my sister-in-law, Amanda, from financial ruin, assuring me we'd live together as one big happy family. 2 weeks later, I found my belongings stuffed into trash bags on her front porch. Looking back, the warning signs were glaring, but I ignored them. It began 3 months ago at one of Grace's infamous Sunday dinners. Amanda sat at the table, eyes puffy and red, while Grace loomed over her like a general rallying her troops. It's just been so hard since Tom left, Amanda wailed, dabbing her face theatrically with a monogrammed napkin. The gambling debts. I can't handle it anymore. Her sobs tugged at my sympathy, even though they felt just a touch too polished, like a scene from a soap opera. Amanda's husband had walked out 6 months ago, leaving her saddled with massive, secret debts. The drama of it all was vintage Amanda. The lawyers say bankruptcy is my only option, she continued, her voice trembling. I'll lose everything, the house, the car, even Mom's antique collection. Grace's grip on Amanda's shoulder tightened as she turned her hawk-like gaze to me. We can't let that happen, can we, Catherine? Family helps family. I hesitated, offering a non-committal nod, but the knot in my stomach tightened. Grace had that gleam in her eye, the same one she'd worn when she convinced my husband, Mark, to loan Amanda $20,000 from our wedding fund. We never saw a dime of it back. You know, Grace said, her voice syrupy with false sweetness. "Catherine, your house is so big for just you and Mark. Why not sell it? The market's fantastic right now." I nearly choked on my wine. "Sell our house? But think about it." Grace cut me off smoothly. "You could help Amanda wipe the slate clean. Everyone could live here together, one big happy family. Imagine the savings on utilities and upkeep." Mark shifted uneasily beside me. "Mom, that's a huge decision. We need to." "Of course, darling," Grace cooed, but her tone dripped with urgency. "It's just that Amanda's bankruptcy hearing is in 2 weeks. Time is of the essence." Over the following days, Grace bombarded us with calls, oscillating between guilt-tripping and thinly veiled accusations of selfishness. "I just don't understand how you could let your own family suffer," she'd say, her disappointment unmistakable. Mark, ever the peacekeeper, tried to stay neutral, but Grace was relentless. Eventually, under the crushing weight of guilt and obligation, we caved. We listed my dream home, the one I'd worked so hard to buy, and it sold almost instantly. The day we handed Amanda the check for $90,000, Grace was practically glowing. "This is what family does," she declared, pulling Amanda into a hug that excluded me entirely. We moved into Grace's modest home, cramming our lives into her guest room. I tried to stay optimistic. "This is temporary," I told Mark, more to convince myself. "We'll rebuild." But the cracks in Grace's big happy family fantasy started showing almost immediately. Amanda's gratitude seemed superficial, and I often caught her exchanging whispers with Grace. Bit by bit, our belongings migrated from the guest room to the garage, one box at a time. I brushed it off, desperate to keep the peace. Until the day it all came crashing down. On a rainy Tuesday morning, I opened the front door to find my life stuffed into garbage bags and my place in the family erased. That rainy Tuesday morning, I returned from a grueling hospital shift to find my life in ruins. Every single one of our belongings sat in garbage bags on Grace's front porch, soaking in the cold drizzle. A bright yellow note fluttered on the door, its cheerful color mocking the words scrawled in bold, unapologetic handwriting. "Found a better use for the guest room. Grace." My hands trembled as I stared at the mess. I fumbled for my phone, my voice shaking as I called Mark. "They've thrown us out," I managed, tears blurring my vision. "All our things air." "That's impossible," Mark interrupted. Mom would. His words faltered, replaced by muffled voices in the background. Then I heard Grace's unmistakable tone, sharp and unyielding. "Tell your wife not to make a scene," she said, her voice cutting like a blade. "Amanda needs the guest room for her home office now that she's starting her business." I froze. "Her what?" "Amanda's new business," Grace repeated, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. As if summoned by my disbelief, Amanda's Mercedes glided into the driveway, a sleek, brand-new model that gleamed even in the gray light. Gone were the traces of financial ruin she paraded weeks ago. She stepped out in designer clothes, her hair and makeup perfect, a stark contrast to the tearful, bedraggled woman who begged for our help. "Oh," she said lightly, spotting me on the porch. "You're still here." Her tone was casual, as though we were old acquaintances running into each other by chance. She glanced at my rain-soaked belongings and winced. "Didn't you see the note? Mom and I decided it'd be best if you and Mark lived separately for a while. You know, so he can focus on family priorities." "Family priorities?" I echoed, my voice hollow. "We sold our house to help you." She laughed then, sharp and cruel, a sound that sliced through the air like a whip. "And I'm so grateful," she said, her smile all teeth. "That money was exactly what I needed to start my luxury spa business. Mom's been helping me plan it for months. She said you'd never agree if you knew the truth, so—" She gave a little shrug, as if the betrayal were a minor inconvenience. "We had to get creative." I stood there stunned as she sidestepped my belongings like they were garbage littering her path. "By the way," she added, pausing at the door, "Mark's staying here. Mom convinced him it's best for everyone. You understand, right?" Through the window, I could see Grace watching us, her arms crossed, a smug smile tugging at her lips. She'd orchestrated everything, the sale of our house, our move into her home, and now this final, calculated blow. The worst part, when I called Mark again, his phone went straight to voicemail. An hour later, a single text buzzed on my screen. "Mom's right. I need time to think. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I stood in the rain, staring at the words until they blurred. My life, my home, my marriage had dissolved in the span of a morning. But as I began loading my drenched belongings into my car, another realization struck me. This wasn't just about money. This was about power and control. A perfectly executed plan to strip me of everything I held dear. But what they hadn't counted on was this. I wasn't powerless. They might have blindsided me, but they'd made one fatal mistake. I had evidence, every text, every email, every lie Grace and Amanda had spun to manipulate us. They thought they'd won, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. What Grace and Amanda didn't realize was that I had a habit of documenting everything. Years as a nurse had taught me the value of meticulous records. Every text, every email, every family meeting filled with thinly veiled manipulation. I had it all saved, including Amanda's drunken confession at last week's dinner about how she and Grace had been planning their so-called investment opportunity for months. My first stop was Sarah's law office. Sarah had been my best friend since college and was now one of the toughest attorneys in town. Sitting in her sleek conference room, still in my damp scrubs, I spread out printed emails, texts, and voice recordings across the table. As Sarah skimmed through the evidence, her eyebrows climbed higher with each page. This, she said, pointing to a particularly damning email where Grace laid out their scheme, is textbook fraud. And here, Amanda outright admits the bankruptcy was exaggerated to pressure you into selling. Can we prove it? I asked, my voice wavering as I wrung my hands. Sarah smiled, a sharp, predatory grin that I'd seen her flash before big cases. Oh, we can do better than prove it. Grace's biggest mistake. She put everything in writing. The next morning, Grace's carefully curated world began to unravel. First came the legal notice of fraud charges. Then the police showed up to investigate misappropriation of funds. But the real bombshell came when the local news picked up the story. Overnight, Grace went from a respected socialite to a pariah. You can't prove anything, Grace sputtered at reporters camped outside her country club, her usual composure cracking. But her defiance crumbled when they played Amanda's recorded confession, broadcasted for everyone to hear. 3 days later, Mark finally called. His voice was shaky, breaking under the weight of guilt. Kath, I had no idea, he said. Mom swore she was just helping Amanda get back on her feet. I never thought. Save it, I interrupted, my voice cold. You chose them over me, over us. The court case was swift and devastating, for them. My documentation, coupled with Amanda's loose lips, left no room for doubt. The judge ordered Grace and Amanda to repay the full amount, plus damages. Amanda's spa, built with my stolen money, was seized and sold. Grace's reputation in her precious social circle was destroyed, replaced with whispers of scandal and betrayal. But the fallout didn't stop there. As news spread, other victims of Grace's schemes began to come forward. Amanda's ex-husband. He hadn't abandoned her. Grace had driven him off with similar tactics. 3 other daughters-in-law shared stories of manipulation and financial abuse that mirrored mine. Grace's web of deceit unraveled faster than anyone could have imagined. Today, I'm thriving. I live in a beautiful new condo, paid for with the settlement money. Mark still calls occasionally, pleading for a second chance, but some betrayals cut too deep to forgive. Yesterday, as I drove past Grace's house, I couldn't help but smile at the large for sale sign staked in the front yard. Karma, as it turns out, has a perfect sense of irony. Losing everything taught me more than I ever thought possible. It showed me my strength and resilience. It proved that the best revenge isn't just getting even, it's rising higher than they ever thought you could. To Grace, the mother-in-law who thought she could break me, thank you. You made me stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. Because I'm not just a survivor, I'm a warrior. And warriors don't just survive, they conquer. My name is Madison Taylor. 1 month after my fairy tale wedding, my mother-in-law blindsided me with a contract. She called it a family tradition, but it was nothing more than a demand. Pay $150,000 to secure my place in the Richmond dynasty. What she didn't know was that I already held the key to unraveling her empire. The Richmonds were royalty in Boston's elite circles, the epitome of old money and power. Their name opened doors, and their influence silenced whispers. I, on the other hand, came from a modest background. a middle-class upbringing, and a career I built as a financial analyst. When I met Nathan Richmond, I believed love could bridge the gap between our worlds. I couldn't have been more naive. Eleanor Richmond, my mother-in-law, ran the family like a CEO commanding an empire. She micromanaged every detail of our wedding, insisting it reflect the Richmond legacy. "We have standards, Madison," she'd say, dismissing my offers to help with a wave of her manicured hand. The lavish ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral, the reception at the plaza, it was a spectacle of wealth, a performance for their elite audience. I smiled through it all for Nathan's sake. A month after our honeymoon, Eleanor invited me to tea at the Richmond estate. The sprawling mansion, with its marble floors and gilded chandeliers, exuded intimidation. Over tea, she slid an envelope across the table. "Madison, darling," she began with her signature coolness, "this is a family tradition. Every Richmond bride fulfills this requirement." Inside was a contract demanding $150,000 as a family entry fee. My stomach churned as I read the bolded terms. "This can't be serious," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Her smile was razor sharp. "Think of it as an investment in your future with us. Nathan doesn't need to know. This is between us women. You have 1 week to decide." What Eleanor didn't realize was that I wasn't just any bride. Months earlier, while analyzing offshore accounts for a client, I stumbled across something peculiar: suspicious transactions linked to Richmond Global Holdings. As I dug deeper, the picture became clearer and darker. The Richmond fortune wasn't just old money, it was dirty money. That night, Nathan found me in our home office, drowning in spreadsheets and notes. "Everything okay?" he asked, his hands resting gently on my shoulders. I wanted to tell him everything, to unload the weight of the secrets I carried. But Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. Instead, I forced a smile. "Just work," I lied. The next morning, Eleanor sent a text. "Time to prove yourself, Madison. The clock is ticking." She had no idea the game was already changing. I spent the next days unraveling the Richmond family's web of lies. The $150,000 entry fee wasn't just extortion. It was a piece of a larger puzzle. Every bride before me had paid without question. The money funneled into offshore accounts, disappearing without a trace. But one case stood out. 3 years ago, Nathan's cousin married into the family. She refused to pay. 2 months later, she died in a tragic accident. My hands trembled as I closed my laptop. This wasn't just about money, it was about survival. I had a choice: pay the price and become Eleanor's puppet, or expose the Richmonds for the frauds they truly were. One thing was certain: this battle was far from over. With incriminating spreadsheets and transaction histories, the Richmond family's financial empire wasn't just built on old money, it thrived on deception. The so-called entry fees were only the surface of a decades-long money laundering operation Eleanor had been running through their charitable foundations. "Madison." Nathan's voice startled me. My heart leaped as I quickly minimized the screens. He stood in the doorway, holding takeout from our favorite Italian place, his face full of concern. "I thought you could use dinner since you're working late again," he said, setting the bag on my desk. My heart ached at his thoughtfulness. Nathan had no idea his mother was extorting me, or that the Richmond fortune was built on fraud. How much did he actually know? "Have dinner with me," he asked, his voice warm. I nodded, masking my turmoil with a smile. Over pasta, Nathan mentioned something that made my blood run cold. "Mom's planning a big family gathering this weekend. She said she has a special announcement to make." The timing was no coincidence. Eleanor planned to reveal my commitment to the family, or my rejection if I refused to pay. I excused myself to the bathroom, fighting a wave of nausea. When I returned, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ask Jessica Miller about her entry fee, if you can find her." My hands shook. Jessica Miller was Nathan's former fiancée, the woman who had mysteriously disappeared 5 years ago. That night, I waited until Nathan was asleep and began searching for answers. Jessica's trail was cold, but her sister Rachel still lived in Boston. I found her working at a small bookstore downtown. The next morning, I walked into the shop, my pulse racing. Rachel looked up from the counter, her expression hardening when I introduced myself. "Get out," she whispered sharply. "If they find out I talked to you." "Please," I begged. "I need to know what happened to Jessica." Rachel's eyes darted around nervously before she led me to a back room. She found something, Rachel said, her voice trembling. Something in her finances. She refused to pay the fee and threatened to expose them. Then she vanished. The police ruled it a suicide, but they never found her body. My mouth went dry. Did she leave any evidence? Rachel hesitated, then reached into her bag. She mailed me this the day before she disappeared. I've been too afraid to open it. Inside the envelope was a USB drive and a handwritten letter. Jessica had documented everything: the money laundering, the blackmail, and even darker secrets about vanished employees and suspicious deaths. Back at my office, I uploaded the files to a secure cloud drive. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor. "Have you made your decision, dear?" she asked, her tone syrupy sweet. "The family gathering tomorrow would be the perfect time to announce your commitment to our traditions." "I'll be there," I said, my voice steady. "With an announcement of my own." "Wonderful, and Madison. Wear something appropriate. We do have standards." After hanging up, I made a call to the only person I trusted with this information, Sarah, my college roommate, now an FBI agent. "I need your help," I said, "and I need it tomorrow." That night, as Nathan held me close in bed, he whispered, "You've been so tense lately. Is everything okay?" I turned to him, my heart heavy. "Nathan, do you trust me?" "Of course I do. Why?" "Tomorrow, at the gathering, just remember that everything I do is because I love you." He looked confused but nodded, his eyes filled with trust. I prayed it wouldn't be the last time you looked at me that way. The next morning, I dressed carefully in an elegant blue dress, appropriate by Eleanor's standards. In one hand, I clutched the USB drive like a lifeline. In the other, Eleanor's contract, folded and ready. The Richmond estate was teeming with family members, all draped in their usual air of superiority. Eleanor stood at the center of it all, a queen surveying her court. Her predatory smile widened when she spotted me. "Everyone," she announced, clinking her crystal champagne glass. "I believe Madison has something to share with us." I stepped forward, my heart pounding as all eyes turned to me. This was it, the moment I either became another Richmond casualty or brought their empire crumbling down. "Yes," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I do have something to share." The grand hall of the Richmond mansion went silent as I stepped forward, the weight of every gaze heavy on me. Slowly, I pulled out the contract Eleanor had given me. Her smile widened, confident of my submission. Instead, I tore it in half. "I won't be paying your entry fee," I said, my voice ringing out clearly, "and no one else will ever again." Eleanor's smile vanished, replaced by a dangerous glare. "How dare you embarrass us like this?" "Embarrass you?" I cut her off, pulling out my phone and raising my voice. "Like you embarrassed Jessica Miller?" The name hit like a bomb. Gasps rippled through the room. Eleanor's carefully cultivated mask of control faltered. Nathan turned to me, his face pale with confusion. "Jessica, what does my ex-fiancé have to do with this?" "Everything," I said, steadying myself despite my racing heart. "Your mother demanded the same $150,000 entry fee from her. But when Jessica refused and threatened to expose the family's illegal activities, she disappeared." "That's enough," Eleanor snapped, her voice sharp with panic. But I wasn't done. I held up a USB drive for all to see. "Jessica was smarter than you thought, Eleanor. She left behind evidence. It's all here. Your money laundering through the family charities, the blackmail of Richmond brides, the offshore accounts, even the truth about what happened to cousin Marie after she refused to pay." Nathan turned to his mother, his voice shaking. "Mom, is this true? What is she talking about?" Before Eleanor could answer, the doorbell rang. The butler hesitated, glancing at her for approval, but she was too stunned to respond. He opened the door to reveal Sarah, my FBI agent friend, flanked by a team of federal agents. "Eleanor Richmond," Sarah announced, holding up her badge. "We have a warrant to search these premises and seize all financial records." Chaos erupted. Eleanor lunged for her phone, but I held it up with a triumphant smile. "Looking for this? I've already forwarded your deleted text about Jessica to the FBI." "You conniving little snake," she hissed, her composure shattering. "I knew you weren't good enough for this family." "No, Eleanor," I said, my voice strong and unwavering. "Your family wasn't good enough for your victims." As agents began combing through the mansion, Nathan pulled me aside. His face was a mixture of pain and betrayal. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at him, my heart breaking. Would you have believed me? She's your mother. He was quiet for a moment, then surprised me by pulling me into his arms. I always knew something was wrong. Dad's death, Jessica's disappearance, but I was too scared to dig deeper. I should have been braver. Over the next hour, the FBI uncovered even more than I had expected. Hidden accounts, forged documents, and in Eleanor's private safe, Jessica's original evidence against the Richmonds. The so-called entry fees had been funding illegal operations for 3 generations. Eleanor was led out in handcuffs, her head held high despite the disgrace. Everything I did was for this family, she declared to the room, to maintain our position, our power. Nathan's voice cut through the tension like a blade. No, Mom. Everything you did was for yourself. In the aftermath, the truth about Jessica Miller came to light. Eleanor had arranged for her to be persuaded to leave the country. The FBI tracked her down in Argentina, living under an assumed name. She returned to Boston, ready to testify against the Richmond family. 6 months later, I sat in the living room of our new apartment, a modest but honestly paid-for space, watching Eleanor's sentencing on TV. 20 years for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. The Richmond name, once a symbol of power, was now synonymous with scandal. Nathan squeezed my hand as the news anchor detailed how the investigation had uncovered similar schemes in other elite families. You know, he said quietly, I never cared about the family money or reputation. I just wanted you. I leaned into him, grateful for the love that had weathered the storm. What happens now? I asked. We build our own family, he said, one built on love, not manipulation or fear. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. Thank you for finishing what I started. Dinner soon. I smiled, replying with a quick yes. These days, when people ask about the Richmond scandal, I tell them it wasn't about the money. It was about breaking a cycle of abuse and exploitation. The $150,000 entry fee wasn't just a price tag. It was a symbol of how power corrupts and how courage can dismantle even the most powerful empires. Nathan and I are building something better now, a life based on trust, love, and integrity. No entry fee required. What would you have done in my place?